Hey, it's day 2. You may notice that it's 4:15 p.m. and that's because I've been procrastinating on this all day. What I'm planning on doing today is making it so that you can rotate and flip certain grid objects. So like the conveyor could go all 4 directions, and yeah, time to get started. Here I created a 4-integer rotation system in increments of 90 degrees, but I decided against flipping objects. Okay, I've gotten rotation working, so now you can click on a spot and it will place it in the desired rotation. When you press R, it will cycle the rotations, so you can place conveyors or potentially other objects directionally. Back to work. Next, I figured that if I was going to have conveyor belts, I might as well add a near equivalent to Factorio's inserter. Alright, as you can see, the beamer is now working, and this will be used to extract ideas from the brains. Next, I'm going to figure out how to attach them. Well, in hindsight, I wish I had implemented this differently. I made it so objects on the 2D grid were given updates based on whether something was placed adjacently to them, and then handled their own logic in that event. Hey, so after way more work than I thought would go into it, I finished linking up different tiles, so now conveyors sort of point at each other and know which ones they're pointing to and how to transfer and stuff, but they don't actually do the transferring yet. And as you can see on the left, I've made a sort of tool that shows you all adjacent possible connections. So there's also beamers now, which are sort of like Factorio's inserter equivalents, and then the brain, which also now knows to transfer to the beamers. So they're not added in that direction, like you have to place the beamer after currently, but as you can see, it's receiving element 1, and then the next connection receives element 2, and then the next one receives element 3, and then because that's all the elements, it loops back to 1 after more of that, so you can extract a bunch of different elements from the brain. Just for the record, I'm using element, idea, and item sort of interchangeably throughout this project, but they're all the same thing, so now I gotta get those working. I drew up a couple of sample mechanics and made an object to represent them in the world based on scriptable object data. Then I used tweeting to allow them to move along conveyors. Hey, I've just finished item transmission completely, for the most part. So now you can place down a brain, and if you set up a beamer so that it's pointing at it, it will get one of the standard ideas. As you can see, there's still some errors, but it works for the most part. And then when you place conveyors going away from it, they transfer just like in Factorio. And it even works directionally, so they'll go back and forth if you do that, or they'll follow along if it changes directions. But yeah, this is most of the important stuff done. Next, I worked on the combiner. The combiner is meant to take in a combination of 2 genres or ideas and output the corresponding genre after a short delay. I've just added the combiner, which is a machine that takes 2 inputs and creates 1 output based on a sort of recipe scriptable object that I've made that takes in a tuple of ingredients and then has a value that represents the output that's crafted by them. So if I go to the main grid here and I add in a combiner right down here, and then I put beamers going into them, I'm going to change the sprites on these, by the way. Right now I have a recipe that says if you combine discovery and combat, you get a movement. So you can see they both go in, and then if you have an inserter or a beamer going out, you can see that it's making these from the 2 inputs. My next job is to create the palette menu where you can select what you want to place. The palette was just a bunch of buttons that sent their information to the brush and the place on grid script when clicked. Okay, I'm done with the build palette, and it works exactly how I want it to. You have a certain number of unlocked slots, and there will be more things to build later down the line, but you can click them to select exactly what you want. Like, this is the brain here, the conveyor belt, the beamer, and the combiner, and you can use these to build exactly the sort of stuff that you could before. Now it's time to move on to adding money. Money was pretty straightforward. It's just an integer in the game manager with a UI element indicating how much you have. that's it. Money is completely added into the game. As you can see in the top left, I have a certain amount of money. Note that you can't place stuff while hovering over the UI, so that isn't an issue. You can click to select whatever palette item you want, like the brain costs 500. You can place 2 of them, and then you can't place any more because you're out of money. When you right click, it sells them back, and whenever you place any of them, it just costs whatever the number indicates at the bottom. And so that about wraps it up for today. It's getting late. I'm gonna go to bed. I'll work on this some more tomorrow. See ya.